Hello again, friends, and welcome to another segment here on Doc G's Wine and Spirits Review. And if you haven't guessed, it is time to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. So to get that started, I have brought a little Mexican beer. Salud. And that is, of course, your Dos Equis brand, always drunk by the most famous man in the world. So what I'd like to do tonight in celebrating El Cinco de Mayo, I would have loved to have been outside my backyard, but unfortunately the rains moved in, and I realized in going through my segments, I've never done a segment on the Cinco de Mayo celebration. So tonight, we're going to change that, keep it real simple, talk about a few things that you might want to do to celebrate in terms of wine and spirits. Well, we can leave out the wine part, so we're going to substitute beer for the spirits because beer is very popular. It actually helped, the beer companies actually helped push this celebration of this day. So I think it's important to have a little background before we get started on what Cinco de Mayo really means. So if I asked you, is Cinco de Mayo Mexican Independence Day? Raise your hand. You would be wrong because it is not. Mexican Independence Day is actually September 16th, and it occurred 50 years after what happened on Cinco de Mayo in 1862, or the 5th of May. At the time, the French occupied Mexico. France was a rather, during the time of Napoleon, France was a rather powerful military. The French had occupied Mexico for a while, and one of the battles that the Mexicans won in their resistance was the Battle of Puebla on May 5th, 1862. And it gave them some hope that they would be able to undo the French. Well, as it turns out, they actually wound up losing their battle before the French actually finally withdrew through many other political circumstances many, many years later. So the 5th of May became symbolic for the win at that battle. However, if you do your research, you will find that the Cinco de Mayo celebration is really not ingrained in the Mexican ethos. They celebrate it in Puebla. There are obviously some celebrations, but their Independence Day on September 16th is much more important to them. However, because of the migration of many Mexicans to this country, the Cinco de Mayo celebrations started back in the 1860s in California, and it kind of hung on and grew and grew and grew. But its roots are Mexican, but its legacy is really Mexican American, and it is a much bigger celebration in the United States, especially in larger cities where there are larger Mexican populations. And believe it or not, commercialism enters right into this. It really started to pick up steam in the 1980s when beer companies like Corona, like Dos Equis, like Modelo, and even American companies, Budweiser and Miller and all the big beer conglomerates in the United States, started to push this holiday, and people started buying into it because it was another excuse to drink, let's be honest. Another excuse to celebrate. So that's not a bad thing, but what I want to impart to you is that Mexico does not really pay much attention the way you might think to Cinco de Mayo. But we certainly do here in the United States, and I've set up a whole segment just to talk about it just a little bit. So the way I would talk to you about it is there are two real important alcoholic beverages in Mexico. One of them is beer, the other one is tequila. There is good Mexican wine too, but you are not going to be opening magazines reading much about Mexican wines as compared to their beer and to their tequila and, of course, mezcal. So with that said, I think I need another sip first. Mexican beers are all very, very drinkable. They're not those big IPAs they're all the lager style, very nice, very good for a sunny, hot day, or if you don't care about it being sunny and hot, You can just have it watching a game or doing whatever you're doing. So these are commercially available everywhere. I'm not really here to do a commercial on Mexican beers, but beyond these, there's Tecate, Carta Blanca, Pacifico. If you go to a good beer distributor, you'll find a whole host of Mexican beers. They are all pretty much in the same kind of style, very light, very good, very refreshing. And I would not turn any of you away from drinking them if they are your choice of beer. Now, I do want to talk about, though, a drink. Let's take the same conversation about what's Mexican and what's really Mexican-American. And that comes down to the word margarita. Now, you know, recently I did a spot talking about combining Saint Germain with tequila, calling it France meets Mexico. Well, in Mexico, the margarita is not as big as a drink called La Paloma. And La Paloma is about the easiest drink in the world. As a matter of fact, it's probably the national highball of Mexico, if there is such a thing. And La Paloma is the Spanish word for the dove. And La Paloma can be made right here in a highball glass with 3 simple ingredients. And I have those ingredients right in front of me, and you make it right in the glass. So, Doc G is going to make you a Paloma and have a sip of it for your enjoyment. So the 3 ingredients that you need, it's a 3-ingredient drink, not like the margarita where you gotta have this, that, and the other thing. You need lime juice, you need a reposado or blanco tequila. I'm going to use a reposado because I really like them. And I'm going to mix that drink for you, and we're going to sip it right now. So, with that said, here we go. The first ingredient that they recommend for a Paloma is this grapefruit soda that comes from Mexico. And I happened to find it today in the giant market when I was out shopping. And lo and behold, I saw this Jarritos grapefruit soda. I have never had this, but they say this is the main ingredient that you put in to a Paloma. So I'm gonna take a sip of that. Tastes like Fresca. They say Fresca is a substitute that you can have for it. So what you need for this drink, they recommend a little pinch of salt and some lime juice, which I've done for you in advance. So that's in there already. 2 ounces of tequila. I'm using this Luna Azul Reposado because I happen to really like the Reposado tequila. I do like the Patron Blanco, but every drink has its purpose. So we pour that in there, and they tell you to do this right in the glass, in a highball glass, and then top this off, they say, with 4 ounces. So we'll measure, since this is my first time doing this. Maybe a little more there. Top it off with a lime. They say stir it right in the glass. Here we go, my friends. Let's see. Vamos a ver. That. You don't even really taste the tequila. You don't taste the grapefruit. It's a brand new drink. And cold, it is wonderful. So I guess you can just mix and match the tequilas that you want to put in it and have yourself a Paloma to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. So whatever it is you're doing tomorrow, unfortunately, if you're around here in my part of the country, you're probably going to be indoors. It looks like we're going to get some more rain, but nevertheless, it's always a sunny day when you have a nice drink in your hand. So thanks for tuning in, and hasta la vista, salud, and we'll see you again. Feliz Cinco de Mayo.